It's a moment of transition for Star Wars. The blueprint of the original trilogy is being used, and now it's time for them to take a step forward.
So I may finally bring this cycle to an end.
As we approach the new Star Wars show, Skeleton Crew is becoming clearer by the day the new direction they're taking.
You're a Jedi.
So fire up those X-Wings and strap yourselves in as we explore what might just be their best decision in years.
One is never too old to learn, Snips.
Before we fly in, don't forget to hit a thumbs up on the video if you enjoy it, and if you'd like to catch more of our Star Wars videos, then make sure to subscribe. Now, with all that out of the way, let's get into the surprising new direction Star Wars is heading in.
As you get older, look at history. You realize it's all inevitable. Fall of the Jedi, rise of the Empire. It repeats again and again and again.
As we look to the future coming away from the Acolyte, we see Skeleton Crew just off into the horizon, which, like the Ahsoka show, looks set to introduce another survivor of Order 66. Now, initially, all of these new introductions were seen as problematic. There's no way this many Jedi survived the Emperor's command.
Execute Order 66.
However, once you connect the dots, that's interestingly no longer the case, which we'll come on to later anyways, as we're returning to the timeline of The Mandalorian, which is widely regarded as the most exciting time explored under Disney. The galaxy's never had so many individual stories playing out at once. We know Din Djarin's officially adopted Grogu and now he's training as a Mandalorian apprentice, after deciding not to stay with Luke and by doing so forsaking the way of the Jedi, and now the pair are working for the New Republic.
On a case-by-case basis.
Protecting the Outer Rim from the Imperial remnants, which are now bolstered with the return of Grand Admiral Thrawn from Peridea, ready to launch their first attack on the New Republic. Except this time, they've got the power of the Night Sisters on their side, whereas the heroes have just lost two of their best fighters in Ahsoka and Sabine, who are stuck in a distant galaxy, along with Baylan and Shin, all of which are under the watchful eye of Anakin. They're on the cusp of unraveling a power most could never imagine. However, by doing so, they risk releasing the very definition of the dark side upon the galaxy in Abeloth. It's been pretty clear for a while now, Star Wars is done rehashing what's come before. We've had the pure at heart Jedi characters like Luke and Rey, we've had the huge planet-killing weapons with the Death Star and Starkiller Base, whilst we've also had the Rebels and the Resistance fighting against the Empire and the First Order, and it's because these ideas are done with no sign of returning, Star Wars is finally going in the direction George Lucas always intended it to, forwards. Whilst also now focusing on a different type of character, primarily those that have more than one string to their bow, such as Anakin in the Cosmic Force, who post-death seems to be continuing the prophecy of the Chosen One by continuously maintaining balance within the Force, all the way to the land of the living with Baylan, who once was a Jedi but now works as a mercenary. He still admires and respects what the Jedi Order stood for, but since it fell, realised how flawed it really was.
Couldn't make sense of it at the time.
He's not a villain, he wasn't a fan of the Empire or Darth Vader for that matter, but his loyalties lie with whoever pays him the most. You never know, perhaps he could start his own version of an order, potentially on Peridea. The truth is, they're now going deeper with more complexity to their characters, with particular theme emerging of Order 66 survivors, which can be seen with Baylan and likely Jod Nanowwood from Skeleton Crew, who we should just call Jedi Jod for short. Now, it's not just a commitment to exploring the not-so-perfect Jedi out there in the galaxy, that's a departure of sorts either. As we know, the Imperial remnants are still around and will likely make up a large chunk of the stories coming our way, and they're still essentially the Empire.
Heralding the re-emergence of our military.
But they're now going that one step further. The galaxy might seem small at times, as we've explored it extensively over the last almost 50 years. But as Ahsoka showed us, outside of it, the universe is huge, and there's far more to be worried about than the return of the Empire. We've already touched on Abeloth, and if she were to escape whatever prison she's in right now, that would certainly be a worst case scenario. And then we have Thrawn, who we already know is well aware of a greater threat off in the distance in the form of the Grisk, and potentially more to follow, which is part of the reason why he got in with the Empire in the first place, and it's likely part of the reason he wants to bring it back. But that's not all, there's another threat lurking in our own galaxy, waiting for its opportunity to rise, and that's actually the Pirate Nation. Now, you might see these guys as your average low-level petty criminals in the grand scheme of Star Wars. However, it's worth remembering all throughout the prequel trilogy, the original trilogy, and even beyond in the sequels, there was always an established government in place which largely kept them at bay. Whereas in the time in The Mandalorian, the New Republic are still trying to get a hand on things, largely finding their limited resources overstretched as it is. We've already seen Gory and Shant's attack on Navarro, in The Mandalorian Season 3, and we already know one of his accomplices that day, Vane, will also be appearing in Star Wars Skeleton Crew this December. And between me, you, and the Garden Wall, it looks like they're working on another Star Wars Disney Plus show that's focusing heavily on pirates. Just how connected Skeleton Crew will be to the bigger picture of The Mandalorian and Ahsoka is yet to be seen. However, it's within the same timeline, so its importance to the wider story can't be ruled out. As well as the threat of pirates, we know the kids meet a Jedi who we're calling Jedi Jod to keep it simple. However, he isn't all he's made out to be. There's apparently more to this character than meets the eye, whilst recent reveals have actually alluded to him being a new type of Jedi altogether. Now, from what we've seen of this character from released images and what we've heard in interviews, along with a story set to focus on pirates, at least partially, my guess is that Jod was a Jedi going back to what we said earlier, likely a survivor of Order 66. However, just like Baylan, accepted the Order was gone and continued to move forward whilst using his unique Jedi abilities along the way, giving in to the very thing a Jedi during the good times would not. Credits.
And well paid for it, Lady Morgan.
Although instead of being for hire, Jod's actually one of the pirates himself. I wouldn't be surprised if the kids somehow become lost in space while searching for some kind of treasure, or at least accidentally in possession of something that would lead them to treasure. And by treasure, it doesn't have to be a chest full of gold, but rather something valuable in the context of Star Wars. And so through his own self-interest comes along for the ride. I feel like he's gonna be the type of character that keeps us on our toes the entirety of the season, trying to figure out whose side he's really on, whether he's really with the kids or he plans to betray them once he gets what he wants. It really feels like they're starting to prioritize pirates in Star Wars going forwards, not in place of the Sith or the Empire, but as well as, with the pirates maybe even taking center stage for a while, especially through the release of Skeleton Crew. We've seen this happen at times before where we've spent a lot of time, for example with the Mandalorians in the Clone Wars, and now we've got the witches making a big comeback through the Great Mothers.
Welcome, child of Dathomir.
Everyone loves the lightsaber-wielding bad guys, but Star Wars comes with so much more than that. With that being said, despite Skeleton Crew happening during The Mandalorian, so there could be some key events happening that tie in there, I don't think the show's going to do overly well in terms of views, at least not right out the gate. Star Wars shows have been in a decline in recent years, and with this show in particular, there's already an alarmingly low amount of interest. But I know John Watts and Christopher Ford's work, like most of you probably do with Spider-Man, and when you've got Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau involved on top of that, they could quietly be cooking up something great. And then of course, a bit like Andor, good word of mouth will spread around, giving the show a bit more attention. It feels as though Star Wars, for the first time under Disney, are now taking the steps George Lucas himself would have probably took if he continued with Star Wars. George didn't want Star Wars to just be about the Jedi and Sith. Yeah, they're a big part of it, but there's so much more. He always pushed the boundaries and moved forwards, which is what they're doing with the former Jedi turned into crime, like the mercenaries and possibly now pirates, but also other groups of Force users like the Night Sisters. If you keep doing the same, people will eventually lose interest. It's got to evolve, and perhaps it couldn't have happened at a better time. Now they're changing their strategy in terms of movies and shows. Whereas in recent years, they've been more than happy doing the TV shows with no movies. Now they're prioritizing movies once again, aiming for around 2 a year, with the Disney Plus shows slowing down to 1 a year. It gives those new, fresh ideas the best opportunity possible to be a success, putting in front of more eyes, reaching more of the general audience. As I said earlier, initially I was skeptical about the amount of Jedi that survived Order 66, thinking surely if that many Jedi survived, why didn't they band together and take the Empire down themselves? And why was Luke left to deal with the Emperor alone? But the more we go on, the more we see that yes, a lot of Jedi did manage to survive, but they were scattered, with many of them out of contact with one another, and as time went on, so did they. The Order was gone, the security they had was gone. Suddenly they're faced with the reality of needing to survive to put food on the table.
Power. Such as you'd never dreamed.
We saw Obi-Wan in the Kenobi show working the Tatooine version of a 9 to 5, but the Jedi out there that are far less disciplined, that aren't as devoted as Obi-Wan, will see a life where they can benefit greatly from crime. Just think, if your store closed down, would you still be wearing a uniform years later, or would you just go and find another job? It's the same for some of these Jedi post-Order 66. They weren't paid exactly by the Order, but they were funded by the Republic, which of course fell, and they received a lot of goodwill from the public, which of course stopped once you couldn't openly be a Jedi anymore. So are you down for exploring the shadier side of the Jedi post-Order 66, diving deeper into the criminal underworld? As always, drop your thoughts, theories, and wildest speculations down in the comments below. Don't forget to leave a like on the video if you've enjoyed it. Remember to subscribe to the channel to catch more of our videos. I'll see you in the next one. May the Force be with you.